Good afternoon. I'd like to call this meeting of your State Board of Elections to order. Going to ask that the secretary call the roll.
Okay. Chairman O'Bannon,
Here.
Vice Chair Dance,
Here.
Secretary Alvis Long here, Mr. Weinstein,
Here.
Delegate Merricks.
Here. Great. Thank you very much. I'm just going to make a couple of quick comments and then we'll proceed with the agenda. I want to, we are having public comment as we have in the past. We may actually look at changing this a little bit so that we do a public comment at the very start of the meeting on the agenda items and then at the end of the agenda on things not on the agenda. We have been taking that next time, and that's procedural. Also remind you, 3 minutes per person. So use your time wisely. And these are public comments. They're not public debates. So we'll be glad to take your comments and take them to heart. But we're not do any running discussion. All right. Approval of minutes. Do we need these done as a block or separately, Franchelle?
We can do them as
Doing a block?
We can do them as a block.
All right. All right. Secretary Alvis Long.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the minutes from the April 11th and 14th meetings have been distributed to the board for their review. And if there are no corrections or additions, I would ask that you make a motion to approve them.
Is there a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
All right. All in favor, please call the roll.
Chairman O'Bannon.
Aye.
Vice Chair Dance.
Aye.
Secretary Alvis Long, aye. Mr. Weinstein.
Aye.
Delegate Merricks.
Aye. Great. Thank you all very much. Commissioners report. Welcome. Oh, let me also introduce Flora Hazel, who's our lawyer for the day. She's sitting up here with us. So, all right, Commissioner.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Vice Chair, members of the board. First, I just want to say a thank you to our registrars in the 66 localities that are having a primary on June 20th. Early voting is underway. As required by the code, that's 45 days of early voting, including the 2 Saturdays before primary day. I've been able to visit a number of localities to look at their early voting operations, and will continue to do so throughout the year. Last week, I was at UVA for the kickoff of the 2023 Cyber Navigator Internship Program Boot Camp. That is the program that we received an NSA grant for several years, where interns from 5 Virginia universities partner up with registrars to delve into cybersecurity issues. We have 39 interns in this year's class, and they are going to be at 19 localities for the summer. So it was a great chance to talk to them and meet with their professors and the folks who are running that program. I just wanted to make a couple comments about the agenda today. We do have preparations for the presidential primary on the agenda today. It may seem a little bit early, but the filing opens July 3rd. So we need to get our candidate bulletin and other forms in place so that we are ready to go on July 3rd for that. The date of the presidential primary in Virginia will be March 5th, 2024. This is the first time that we're going to have a presidential primary that includes early voting. So the early voting for that will start January 19th of 2024, which means that the filing deadline for candidates is December 14th in 2023. So the entire schedule gets backed up a little bit with the 45 days of early voting. The other items on the agenda relate to updates to regulations in order to comply with new legislation related to absentee ballots, as well as ranked choice voting. We are going to be running the first ranked choice voting election in Virginia in Arlington for a local Democratic primary for the Board of Supervisors this year. And it is important that we update our regulations to ensure that that is run according to state and federal election law requirements. Finally, the RLA manual update is on the agenda that was approved by this board earlier this year. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Next item is the presidential primary candidate party schedule. Mr. Saunders.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I actually have 2 memorandum in the board working papers today. The first should be a 2024 presidential primary candidate forms consideration. State law requires candidates in a party presidential primary to file petitions signed by at least 5,000 qualified voters with a minimum of 200 from each congressional district in order to qualify to have their name printed on ballot for the presidential primary. Those petition forms are to be prescribed by the state board and are included in your working papers for review and approval. Code also requires that primary candidates for any office, including president, file a declaration of candidacy in order to qualify for office. In the past, the board has adopted a separate declaration of candidacy, which we've also included for presidential primary in your working papers. Staff has also included a couple other documents that aren't necessarily required to be approved by the board, but have been used in the past for the ease of parties to file and their candidates to file for the primary. Happy to take any questions the board may have.
All right, that's starts on page 21 in your agendas. Anybody have any questions, comments? Anybody in the public?
I have Cheyenne.
Good afternoon, y'all. I sent a letter to this board and to the chairman, Sean Rahman, Democratic Party of Virginia, asking that you did take this agenda item up at this meeting. I just want to extend our appreciation that you've taken it up because we have to.
You'll share all that with those other states that don't have 45-day early vote. All right, is there a motion?
Move, Mr. Chair. Back.
All right,
Second.
any comment? Anybody online? Great, all right. All in favor, call the roll.
Chairman O'Bannon,
Aye.
Vice Chair Dance,
Aye.
Secretary Alves Long, aye. Mr. Weinstein,
Aye.
Delegate Merrick's.
Aye. And the second part of your presentation?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, is consideration of the presidential primary candidate bulletin, which we've included as part of your working papers as well. Code requires that the board does provide a schedule for notices and filing deadlines for the March presidential primary by August 1 of this year. We've attached, like I said, that bulletin to your working papers. A few deadlines not set by code that are included in here that the board would be approving would be the start of candidate and party filing, the deadline for candidates to file paperwork for the primary, and deadlines for parties to certify their list of candidates to the state board, which is all included as deadlines in this bulletin. So like staff recommends the board adopt those proposed presidential primary candidate and party bulletin included in its working papers.
Thank you, sir. I'll look at page 35. It's very interesting. The title of this is How to Run for Office. So we're doing a how-to manual for the presidential. All right, any members of the board have any questions or comments? Anybody in the room or anybody online? All right, is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that we pass that motion on how to run for office for candidates and party representatives,
All right,
presidential primary with that party.
Second.
all right. Call the roll, please.
Chairman O'Bannon,
Aye.
Vice Chair Dance,
Aye.
Secretary Alves Long, aye. Mr. Weinstein,
Aye.
Delegate Merrick's.
Aye.
Thank you very much. And let me just clarify on page 33, I don't think we have any leeway on these dates. These are federal elections, so I don't think if you don't get it in this time on this one, it's going to be too bad. All right.
We can't.
Next item is split precinct, City of Chesapeake. Ms. Scott? Hey, Claire.
Good afternoon, Chairman O'Bannon, members of the State Board of Elections. I'm here today on another split precinct waiver request for the City of Chesapeake. As you know, the Code of Virginia authorizes the State Board of Elections to grant a waiver to administer a split precinct if the governing body of a locality is unable to establish a precinct with the minimum number of registered voters without splitting the precinct pursuant to 24.2-307. The minimum for a county is 100. The minimum for a city is 500. As this is for the City of Chesapeake, this is actually my hometown. This is for Precinct 54 in Pudsville. This was previously approved by the State Board of Elections in your March 2022 meeting. Back then, it was affecting 175 voters, and that has now grown to 275 voters. But as I mentioned, since this is the city of Chesapeake, this is still below the minimum, and thus the staff recommends that you approve the split precinct waiver.
Thank you. Any questions? Matthew?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question. Looks like we previously approved this in February of last year. Is that correct?
The February, I checked it. The February is when they had the actual city council meeting, but the actual approval by the state board was in March.
Just so we already approved it last year, we're just
This
reapproving.
is.
Yes, every year, if they can't heal the split, they have to apply again.
We do a number of those, don't we?
Yeah.
Hotel California. All right, any members of the board have any questions? Anybody in the room, in the public, or online? Okay, is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move for adoption.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Chairman O'Bannon.
Aye.
Vice Chair Dance.
Aye.
Secretary Elvis Long, aye. Mr. Weinstein.
Aye.
Delegate Merrick's.
Aye. All right. Ms. Coles, welcome. Agenda item 6.
Yes, good afternoon, Chairman O'Bannon, members of the board. I have before you 3 amendments to 3 regulations that we currently have. This is to put us in compliance with enacted legislation from this past General Assembly session, which will become effective July 1. So essentially, Acts of Assembly, Chapter 785, removes the witness signature requirement for absentee ballots and applications and replaces that with the voter's year of birth and the last 4 digits of their Social Security number. If that individual was not given a Social Security number and they indicated that on their application when they registered to vote, then they are permitted to provide their unique identifier, which would be their voter ID. So essentially, this puts our administrative code in compliance with the new legislation. So this affects 1 VAC 204540 pertaining to federal write-in absentee ballots, 1 VAC 207020 pertaining to all other absentee ballots, and then this repeals 1 VAC 207080, which is dealing with the witness signature requirement during a declared state of emergency.
Thank you. So basically, all of these are follow-ons to the laws that were enacted last session. And I will say these are fast-tracked because of the timeline, the fact that this is election law.
Yes.
And we have a letter from the Attorney General's office that addresses that and the fact that we are on solid grounds in this route. All right, any members of the board have any questions, Matthew?
Just a quick comment. Just saying, glad to see the General Assembly take this action this year. I know there's a lot of back and forth the last few elections where for one election it was required, the witness requirement is required. The next it wasn't. So I was glad to see this clarified and thank you for drafting these regulations.
Anybody else? Consistency is a virtue. All right, anybody in the room from the public or online? Okay, is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move for adoption.
Is there a second? Call the roll.
Chairman O'Bannon.
Aye.
Vice Chair Dance.
Aye.
Secretary Elvis Long, aye. Mr. Weinstein.
Aye.
And Delegate Merrick's.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, so now we have the duo of Rachel and John. And fast forward to page 187 in the agenda. Not 73, I'm sorry.
Hello, members of the board. Hope everyone can hear me all right. So before we get into the regulation presentation, we wanted to give a high-level view of ranked choice voting, what it is, the RC Tab software that'll be used to do the tabulation rounds, and the overall work ELECT and Arlington have done in preparation for the first ranked choice voting election in the Commonwealth. So today, I'm joined by the members of the project team. My name is John Cronin. I'm an EPMO project manager at the Department of Elections that's been working on ranked choice voting. With me is Rachel Lawless, the confidential policy advisor,
We also have Jonathan Barbette, Security Manager for Elect. Online, we have Steve Koski, a Policy Analyst for Ranked Choice Voting. And we also, I believe, have Gretchen Reinmeyer, the General Registrar for Arlington. And I will give a special shout out to Gretchen, who's been instrumental at this work, getting into details, meeting with us on a weekly basis to talk about ranked choice throughout this process. So I just want to give a special shout out to her. She's been very helpful. So once we're done with this overview, Rachel will present the updated regulation. But to begin, Rachel will discuss the background of ranked choice voting in the Commonwealth. Do we have the presentation up? Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm just going to give a brief background on ranked choice voting in the Commonwealth to bring everybody up to speed who might not know all the ins and outs. During the 2020 General Assembly session, the General Assembly passed both Chapter 1054 and Chapter 713 of the Acts of Assembly. This established ranked choice voting as a possible method for an election for County Board of Supervisors and City Council members in the Commonwealth. This created 24.2-673.1 of the Code of Virginia, which expires in July of 2031. In September of 2021, the State Board of Elections approved regulations for the proper and efficient administration of elections determined by ranked choice voting. Later on today, I will propose amendments to these regulations, which reflect current best practices and technological advancements since those regulations' initial passage. The State Board of Elections also approved ballot standards for ranked choice voting at that September 2021 meeting, and we will be updating those as well. In December of 2022, the Arlington Board of Supervisors approved an ordinance which made them the first locality in the Commonwealth to run a ranked choice voting contest. In the spirit of collaboration, a tremendous amount of work has been done in partnership with Arlington, the Ranked Choice Voting Resource Center, and elect staff to administer this contest. Fast forward to June 20th this year, Arlington will host the first multi-seat Board of Supervisors race using ranked choice voting. In November, the elect will be responsible for producing a report on ranked choice voting to the General Assembly regarding ranked choice voting in the Commonwealth. And that sort of gives you a broad overview and where we are today. On that note, I will turn it over to John to discuss some basics regarding ranked choice voting.
All right, so as the name suggests, voters have the option to rank their candidates in order of preference. So just giving a high-level view of what this looks like, obviously. There's no requirement to rank all of the candidates, but voters can rank up to 3 in Arlington for this primary. If no candidate has a majority of the first choice votes, tabulation rounds occur. These tabulation rounds eliminate the candidate with the lowest first choice votes and transfer the second and third choice votes to the still remaining candidates until a winner or winners, in the case of Arlington, are declared. Next slide. So to expand on the previous slide, tabulation occurs in the following way. So ballots are scanned at the polling place, just like every other election, but what is unique with ranked choice voting elections is the requirement of a cast vote record be produced. So the cast vote record is produced by each voting vendor in a little bit different of a way, and I'll talk about this in a little bit. But the ranked choice voting rounds are done with a cast vote record and allows those to be tabulated. Next. So on election night, the first choice totals will be the only thing reported on Elect's website. The tabulation rounds I just discussed cannot take place until every ballot is received by the locality. So since absentee ballots can be received up till noon on the 3rd day after the election, and localities have to conduct their provisional ballot meeting, this means that the winners might not be announced and very well will not be announced on election night if there's no clear majority winner or winners, and this may take up to 7 days. Next. Next one. All right, so a little bit into the tabulation process of RC Tab. So the information on the previous slides all contributed to elect's determination that a tabulation software needed to be integrated into the process. As you all know, Virginia has 4 different voting vendors in the state, and each of those produce potentially different cast vote record files. So it was important that a tabulator could take in all of them and be standardized throughout the Commonwealth. So RC Tab, a tabulation software created by the Ranked Choice Voting Resource Center, met this requirement, as it can take in the cast vote records from each voting vendor in Virginia. It also met federal security and testing requirements, EAC standards, and as elect's security manager, Jonathan Barbette, will now detail, Virginia's requirements were also met during its period of testing and validation. So I'll turn that over to Jonathan.
Good afternoon. So I'm going to talk about RC Tab testing and validation. We did a test review of RCVRC and EAC security documentation. This included several documents, including the Pro-V&V, USB process, system hardening, software design, system test, and quality assurance. Of note is the Pro-V&V report. The security was tested, was evaluated. The integrity of the universal RCV tabulator. Attempts were made to defeat the access controls and security measures documented in the system's TDP. All tests were passed. Another document of note is the secure USB process. This meets federal government standards. It is encrypted and also involves a PIN to access the USB. Last, on the first bullet here I want to speak about is the system hardening procedures. We basically start with a base system. We remove any unnecessary software. We apply security updates, configure the machine not to be able to access the network or the internet. The system is completely offline. Next bullet there, we did state and local testing of RC Tab. The state and local testing took place in January and February of 2023. Elect used various sample scenarios and mock elections to confirm the compatibility and validation of RC Tab with the 4 voting systems currently approved in Virginia. Further, Elect will require validation testing and confirmation prior to each RCV contest. And the last bullet in the slide, we developed procedures to ensure chain of custody, which is the key to ensuring that there are no alterations made during the process. We did documentation on CVR custody, which is physical control. The RC Tab procedures have several chain of custody checks and balances in place. For example, how the USB drive is protected through the process. Elect loads the software. The laptop stays under lock and key when not being used for ranked choice voting. Second is that the non-connectivity. This is covered under the system hardening and QA plan. Again, this is a closed environment, starts on a clean computer. All updates, drivers, software must be USB loaded from another machine. The RC Tab machine never connects to the internet. Last on that is the pre-election validation by localities. Validation is incorporated into the RC Tab procedures. So that's the quality assurance, software design, and specifications and validation test procedures. That is that for the testing and validation. Slide. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, so as with any new election process, outreach and education is extremely important. This was outlined in code as both the state and locality responsibility and was a major focus of the project. Elect worked with a vendor to develop RCV materials such as training materials, handouts, and the FAQ document you see on this slide. Additionally, Arlington has developed their own materials and conducted 20 events since April 12th to educate the public in their locality, and this is not including the community events that they have inspired to educate the public there. So these materials Elect has created are available at elections.virginia.gov and on Arlington's website as well for their locality specific. So that is the end of the overview. I'll pass it off to Rachel for the presentation of the regulation, unless you all have any questions on the presentation.
We could, yeah, as a resident of Arlington.
Well, as a resident Arlingtonian on the board, I want to thank you all for the work you've done. Especially want to thank Gretchen Reineminer, who I believe is on the call. She and her team did a wonderful job with outreach, informing the public on how this is going to work. So again, thank you, Gretchen. I know she met with the NAACP, Arlington Republicans, the Civic Federation, and a whole bunch of organizations. So it's been a real team effort to really educate Arlington how to do this. I was on the electoral board last year when the county board decided to adopt RCV for the June primary for the county board. And, you know, Arlington, we tend to march to the beat of our own drummer. So I think, want to be the first ones to do it. And, you know, the reasoning, and it might be helpful just to know the reason for doing RCV and why we want to do for the county board is the theory is whoever wins gets a majority of the support at the end of the day from the voters through the different rounds. So you wouldn't have someone who wins a race with 22% of the vote or something like that. And, you know, we have some experience with this in Arlington. The local Democrats have done it for the school board caucus endorsement. So I think it's going to go very, very smoothly and very, very well. And again, thanks to elect for adopting the regulations and the tabulation procedures. I look forward to that part of the presentation.
Any other members of the board, anybody in the room from the public or online?
In the room, I have Chris.
Hi, I'm Chris Hensel. I'm Secretary of the Fairfax County Electoral Board. I was going to wait until after the presentation, but my question was basically, is there any role for authorized representatives or poll watchers in the procedures you were summarizing here for ranked choice voting? There is. Will that come out during your presentation? Okay, thank you.
All right, anybody online?
Yes, hello. Thank you. Well, I would like to urge the board to delay any decision about approving RCV tab software until consideration and discussion about the role of nonprofits within Virginia's election infrastructure has occurred amongst the board members. The Election Administration Resource Center, doing business as the Ranked Choice Resource Center, they are one and the same. And as with the majority of nonprofits involved in the sphere of elections, neither are they truly nonpartisan. According to their Schedule B Form 990, the Election Administration Resource Center received approximately $1.5 million in total revenue, with 80% coming from only 4 donors: Arnold Ventures, the Hewlett Foundation, Unite America, and the Kaplan Foundation. Arnold Ventures, an LLC operated by a hedge fund billionaire and former Enron exec, donated 54% of the grant money. Significant support from such a small group of wealthy donors should be cause for concern. Recent donations by all 4 organizations are shown to support only progressive causes aimed to influence policy on progressive agenda items such as cashless bail, reducing law enforcement resources, and changing the structure of our elections to increase the likelihood that progressive candidates are installed in positions to achieve their goals. Restricted donations to the Election Administration Resource Center have steadily increased year over year. In 2019, $10,000, in 2020, $48,000, and in 2021, $250,000. And donations could only be utilized for tasks or goals dictated by the 4 donors. Likewise, the board members of the Election Administration Resource Center are mostly Democrat. Gary Bartlett, he's the founder and executive director, spent 20 years under Democrat leadership as the Commissioner of Elections in North Carolina and was a consultant for the progressive organization Fair Vote. Rebecca Chaz Hoke, Vice Chair and elected Democrat, Minority Whip in the Utah House of Representatives. She volunteers for the progressive group Planned Parenthood, ACLU. John Moldover, he is the inventor of the RCV tab software. His donations are mostly progressive, most notably an organization called Sister District Project, whose main focus in 23 is to flip Virginia blue. In closing, I want to say I support the right of any nonprofit who is working to implement policies they believe in. What I do not agree with is allowing ideology-driven nonprofits into our election process. Nonprofit influence, regardless of ideology or side of the spectrum, should stay where it belongs, on the outside of election infrastructure. This software should undergo the normal process with an RFQ or be developed by our own in-house state IT departments. I sincerely hope you will not vote in favor of inserting yet another nonprofit into Virginia's elections. I thank you for taking my comment.
Thank you very much. Anybody else?
Next, I have Elizabeth Fox.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yes, thank you. Elizabeth Block from Prince William County. I have a comment. There is a slide on the material submitted. The slide is titled Voter Education, and the top bullet says mandated by code for both state and local, and this is referring to ranked choice voting. We had 5 bills that did not pass in the last legislative session. They failed for ranked choice voting. This is not a mandate, and I ask that that word be stricken from the record and the minutes. And that is my comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next.
Chris Rowland.
Good afternoon. My name is Chris Rowland. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Great. I'm from Loudoun County, and I'm concerned about the addition of ranked choice voting software by yet another third party. In particular, I'm concerned that there is no information in this meeting packet that addresses how this software was actually tested in accordance to the voting system certification standard by the state of Virginia. You guys haven't run this through an actual test scenario like you do the normal testing procedure for voting equipment. The reason why this is important is because this software is actually going to be tabulating votes, right? It's also going to be injecting additional costs in both time, effort, and dollars on the counties, where today they don't have any of that because of the immense pressure that is placed upon them for reporting. We just heard you guys talk about the representatives of elect about how the actual results are going to be yet further delayed. The public reporting will be further delayed by this process. And it just seems like there should be a pause in consideration of voting for this. It doesn't seem like it's mature enough, and I would advise you to vote no. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Okay. Anybody have any questions? So is there a motion? Oh, Rachel, you're going to come forward and please go right ahead. Next step.
Thanks for keeping me on task, Chairman.
Sorry for being slow at
Yeah.
the switch.
Before we get started, I just wanted to acknowledge Steve Koski, who is the policy lead for ranked choice voting. He did a tremendous amount of work putting these regulations together. Unfortunately, he can't be with us in person today. He is here online to answer all your nitty-gritty questions should you have them. But I just wanted to give a thanks to Steve because he has worked pretty hard to amend these regulations. In preparation for the first ranked choice voting contest to be held in Virginia, it was determined that amendments to the existing ranked choice voting regulations were required for consistency with established ranked choice voting practices and the technical, you get what I'm saying, technical capabilities, the voting systems and ranked choice voting tabulation software. These amendments touch on 4 different sections of administrative code. At a very high level, these changes are summarized in the memo, as well as the full text of the regulations are in your packet. But just to summarize those, the amendments give clarification on 2 aspects of tabulation: the tabulation that occurs at the polling place on election day, and the calculations done by RCV rounds during the canvass. Clarification is given on election thresholds for which candidates will win in the regulations. Amendments have been made to terms related to ballot treatment and tabulation. And it also allows for the department to approve of the software used for tabulation. This is important because ranked choice voting software is not considered a voting system by code. Therefore, it is not subject to the same statutory requirements as a voting system. I know that was a question that was posed earlier in this discussion. So these regulations give the authority to the department to approve the software, which in your board working papers, you will see the methodology behind that decision to approve ranked choice voting tabulation software. The winners may be determined in the first round if a maximum possible threshold is met. That was another addition. It also made additions to reporting requirements in terms of reporting results by precinct, as well as reporting voting round results by the different rounds. To that end, it is recommended that one VAC 20-110, one VAC 20-140, one VAC 20-150, and one VAC 20-170 of Administrative Code be amended. If the SB has no questions, a suggested motion is available in your memo.
All right. Board have any questions?
Mr. Chair, I move adoption as requested.
Second.
Okay. Call the roll.
Chairman O'Bannon,
Aye.
Vice Chair Dance,
Aye.
Secretary Elvis Long, aye. Mr. Weinstein,
Aye.
Delegate Merrick's.
Aye. Okay, so thank you very much.
I have another item.
Sure.
Can't get rid of me just yet. Due to the adoption and planned use of ranked choice voting in Virginia, revisions to the hand counting standards are proposed to provide clarity on ballot treatment scenarios that arise in ranked choice voting elections. These will primarily be used in the event of a recount or when counting certain absentee ballots. So basically, these just allow for scenarios with a ranked choice voting ballot. Pretty basic amendments here. So without further ado, if you don't have any other questions, please look towards the suggested motion in your board packet.
Yes, thank you very much. That's on page 207. Any questions? Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move for adoption as requested.
Second.
Call the roll.
Chairman O'Bannon,
Aye.
Vice Chair Dance,
Aye.
Secretary Elvis Long, aye. Mr. Weinstein,
Aye.
Delegate Merrick's.
Aye. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. I try to avoid making comments, but I want to thank you all for all the work that you all did on this. Some of us personally may not particularly like this, but that's not germane when we're sitting in these seats. We're basically doing what the code tells us to do. And so I appreciate everybody's input, and we'll see how it goes. All right. Next item is item 8. Ashley, we're back.
I'm back. So I have before you all a new regulation as well as a new form. So during this recent General Assembly session, Acts of Assembly Chapters 663 and 664 passed, which basically set out the procedures by which an elected officer or an officer that has been appointed to fulfill an elective office may be removed. As it pertains to the state board and particularly general registrars, the new procedures require a petition that is submitted for the removal of an officer. One copy is sent to the general registrar. The general registrar has to review that petition and make sure it meets the signature requirements. So there has to be at least 10% of the number of individuals that have voted for that particular office to sign that petition. So the general registrar will review it, make sure the petition signatures are valid. They're supposed to provide a certification to the clerk of court and let the clerk of court know if there are any material omissions. So before you, we have a regulation regarding material omissions for a petition for the removal of an officer. The material omissions that are in front of you are pretty similar to what we have as material omissions for referendum petitions, as well as our standard candidate qualification petitions. The only thing I'll highlight that's different in this regulation is, if the petition does not have the name or some variation of the name and the office of the officer to be removed, that is considered a material omission. If it does not identify the applicable jurisdiction, that is a material omission. And if it does not have the specific reasons or grounds for removal on the form itself, that is also considered a material omission. What we do not consider a material omission, which is different from the other regulations that we already have standard, the name of the officer to be removed. If that's not on the back of the petition, we do not consider that material. And then if the circulator has not provided the year of birth in the affidavit, we do have the option to allow individuals that sign the petition to provide their year of birth. And that just allows for registrars to help identify them. Other petitions, we have individuals provide the last four of their social, but that in those petitions, that's already authorized in Title 24.2. The General Assembly did not allow for that provision when they passed these two acts of assembly chapters, so we do year of birth. And that's what's before you.
All right, any questions? Any public comment from the room or online? Okay. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Go.
All right.
Go.
I move that the board adopt the proposed regulation one VAC 20-60-90 material emissions from officer renewal petitions and petition signature qualification.
I second.
Call the roll.
Chairman O'Bannon.
Aye.
Vice Chair Dance.
Aye.
Secretary Elvis Long, aye. Mr. Weinstein.
Aye.
Delegate Merrick.
Aye.
All right, next item. Ms. Laws, welcome back.
Hello again. Pursuant to the Code of Virginia 24.2-671.2, the State Board of Elections must prescribe the processes and procedures for the conduct of risk-limiting audits in the Commonwealth of Virginia. During its March 7, 2023 meeting, the SBE approved the use of the batch comparison method for conducting risk-limiting audits at the local level. The proposed amendments in the manual just reflect the necessary processes and procedures to allow localities to conduct a batch comparison audit. And so without further ado, I will turn it back over to you for approval.
All right. So as you know, this follows on to some discussions we had and a decision that we could add a batch comparison to ballot polling for the risk limiting audit process. And these are just the follow-on regulations instant to that. So anybody have any questions? Anybody in the room or online?
CJ Coles.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Fantastic. My name is CJ Coles, for the record. I am the Senior Policy and Advocacy Associate for the National Nonpartisan Nonprofit Verified Voting. I think perhaps some board members know our organization, as long as some staff at ELECT. And really today, all I'm here to do is applaud the board for making this decision to allow batch comparison as an option in the risk limiting audit process. We find that batch comparison is a great option as an RLA, especially at the statewide level, using batch comparison. As you know, we have expertise in design and implementation of risk limiting audits, and we stand ready to provide any expert guidance, assistance, technical advice as the law may allow in accomplishing the goals of the SBE in adopting batch comparison. So with that, again, we applaud the board in making this decision, and we look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate friendly fire. Anybody else? All right, is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move approval of the amendments as requested.
Second.
Call the roll.
Chairman O'Bannon.
Oh, aye.
Vice Chair Dance.
Aye.
Secretary Elvis Long, aye. Mr. Weinstein.
Aye.
Delegate Merrick.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. I really appreciate it. Y'all have done a lot of work here, and it's kind of overwhelming to see how much you have had to do. All right, we're now at the point in the meeting where we will be glad to take public comment on anything that was not on today's agenda. So we'll start with folks in the room based on the sign-up sheet. Franchelle?
Miss Susan Hogg.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Hoag. Yes, thank you, Chairman O'Bannon. Additional friendly fire to add to this afternoon's meeting. Just wanted to have a brief comment regarding Virginia's prudent decision to terminate its relationship with ERIC. thank you, Commissioner Beals, board members, for making that decision. I'm sure it was not made lightly, but with that being said, since Virginia joined ERIC, its mandates have indeed expanded beyond the original intent, as was evidenced by at least 10 different iterations over the course of time that did in fact, change substantially the membership bylaws. So again, well thought out and justifiable decision. And I just wanted to again say thank you very much for that, making that decision. There are many, many people behind me that are also delighted to hear that, and that we stand ready in any way, shape, or form to assist to further endeavors to help ensure that our voter rolls stay and are maintained in a proper and clean fashion. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Next, I have Ms. Deb Wake.
Good afternoon. I'm Deb Wake, the president of the League of Women Voters of Virginia. And you have a letter before you that I will read as briefly as possible. But we are a nonpartisan organization that does not support or oppose political parties, but works on behalf of our members and voters in Virginia and has done so for over 100 years. We are deeply concerned that Virginia has withdrawn from the Electronic Registration Information Center known as ERIC. ERIC has been considered the most effective tool for states to maintain clean voter lists, and even recently, our Attorney General cited the effectiveness of this organization. With this withdrawal, Virginia has undermined its laudable efforts to clean up its voter lists in preparation for the introduction of a new voter registration system. On May 12th, we sent a letter to the commissioner with a copy to the governor urging that the administration reconsider this counterproductive action. Failing that, we asked for more information concerning how ERIC would be replaced. We also criticized some of the justifications for withdrawal and that were stated in her May 11th letter to Shane Hamlin, Executive Director of ERIC, namely that Virginia would have to bear the cost of resources on its own or have to rely on less comprehensive resource. It would be more burdensome to obtain information from each neighboring state, and that exiting ERIC weakens Virginia's ability to assure voters and the general public our process has integrity and it is secure. I've shared a copy of a May 26th article that ran in the Kansas Reflector, detailing other failed attempts to replicate what ERIC provides. ERIC was conceived in 2009, but wasn't operational until 2012 because of the complexities of constructing such a system, making it secure, even though the data scientist who built it is acknowledged to be one of the best in the world. Its leadership is bipartisan, and its board is composed of the officials responsible for elections in the member states. Other states have tried and failed. We have the interstate voter registration crosscheck, known as Crosscheck, which was started by Kansas, Iowa, Nebraska, and Missouri in 2005. It expanded to include 25 more states by 2014. Its data matching was inadequate, causing thousands of legitimate voters to be purged, including U.S. Senator Rick Scott, who represents Florida. In 2018, Crosscheck lost a lawsuit relating to privacy concerns about how it handled voter data, and it was disbanded as part of the settlement. In 2020, Indiana sought to form a data sharing consortium with neighboring states, Illinois, Kentucky, Ohio, and Michigan, but those states were already members of ERIC. Indiana decided to go it alone, but was sued because the state did not give voters adequate notice before removing them from voter rolls. Indiana lost the lawsuit and abandoned the plan. Due to the transience of its population, New Hampshire sought to enter into a data sharing agreement with neighbors Maine and Massachusetts in 2019. The program never got off the ground. Maine joined ERIC in 2021, and Massachusetts joined ERIC in 2022. These are cautionary tales of other failed attempts to replace ERIC.
Your 3 minutes is
Thank
up,
you.
so finish up if you will. Thank you. All right, anybody else in the room?
Next, I have Ann Kinney.
Switch it. Irene.
My name is Irene Charles.
Come to the microphone, please. Identify yourself.
Sorry. My name is Irene Charles, and I'm from Charles City. First, I want to thank you all for exiting ERIC for many reasons, because it didn't help us clean our poll book. But That's not the reason why I came here to talk. Thank you for the letter from the Commission Bills and Chair O'Bannon for sending it to our registrar, our county administrator, our 3 board supervisors, and 3 electoral board members concerning the election issues we experience in Charles City. We are thankful your guidance will help them follow the law and keep our election fair and safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
So next I have Ms. Ann Kinney.
Good afternoon. Thank you. My name is Ann Kinney. I'm also from Charles City. We do have another issue. As is our policy, we send a representative to the LNAs that happen before each election. At the close of the LNA, our representative gets the serial number and the protected number and the public number from each machine, making sure the public number is zeroed out. We also have a representative who is there when each machine is open. So we had a representative on the day early voting started for our special election. At that time, he wrote down the serial number, the public number, and the protected number. The public number read 15. The protected number read an additional 15 over what was recorded at the end of the LNA. When our chairman asked for explanation from our registrar, she was poo-pooed. She was told, he got it wrong, he wrote it down wrong. I don't know how you write 15 when you see 0 or 0 when you see 15, but that is what happened. We are asking once again for some guidance, some help, trying to make sure that this does not happen again. We recognize that election is passed, but we don't want this to happen again. We're very serious about writing down serial numbers and the numbers that correspond with them. So if anyone could give us help or direct us to somebody who could help us to make sure we establish it should not happen again. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else in the room? Okay. Online, and I'll just remind folks that we have heard good discussion on both sides of the Eric decision already. So welcome to everybody online.
I have Chris Rowland again.
Good afternoon. I'm really kind of shocked that you all decided to go ahead and just pass this ranked choice voting thing, but I'm also at the same time not surprised. And I'm not sure that you realize just how much of a burden that this is going to impose upon the county, especially in Loudoun County, because we're using the Unison software from our for our ballot scanners. And in order for you guys to get ranked choice voting results, I want you to understand the process that we're going to have to go through, because we have 96 precincts. Each one of these precincts has a ballot scanner. So the USB drives from each one of those ballot scanners is going to have to be removed, and they're going to have to be input into a single PC. So let's just think about the logistics for that for a minute. You've got to take the USB drive that's in the number 7 envelope, and you've got to open that envelope. Then you have to put that into a PC, this new PC that you're going to force our county to buy, and you're going to import the results off of that USB drive into the Unison election management PC. And then that data has to get processed. And then, and only then, can you take the new USB drive from this new third-party vendor that you just approved, import that data onto yet another USB drive, and put it into yet another PC. This process takes time, a lot of time, because you've got to do it 96 times. And then you have to run the tabulation with this ranked choice voting software that I don't necessarily know anybody's asking for or wants. You're injecting yet another layer of obfuscation into a process that people are already upset about, that doesn't have traceability. And traceability is pretty important, especially when you talk about things like, how did the results of my ballot, the things that I marked, actually get translated into the outcome of an election. It's hard enough for elect to be able to do that with Veris, with the voter registration and preventing of duplicate registered voters. You guys are creating a nightmare scenario that just doesn't need to be done. And it just boggles the mind why you want to make it even worse. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Next, I have Ann Gregorian.
Yeah, hi, thank you. I'll be very brief. I just wanted to add my name to those that appreciate that the state board and the Department of Elections has chosen to get out of ERIC. Again, it's a nonprofit. It lacks transparency that we need for our list, and I'm confident that elect and the state of Virginia can maintain their lists without the input of a third party. I have confidence that we can do a better job, and I appreciate getting out of ERIC. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Next, I have Miss Elizabeth Block.
Yes, hello, thank you very much. I just want to make a statement to Ms. Lawless. To state in front of the state board that software is not part of the voting system certification is duplicitous, and I find it astonishing. I would like Ms. Lawless to entirely back up what she stated because she's misleading the board. And I ask any of you on the board to consider, how do you think votes are tabulated in this state on voting systems? If Ms. Lawless's statement, which was gleefully presented, is true, then the governed which you serve have absolutely no assurance of accurate elections or tabulations. And I'm sorry, you all need to hear this. Please stop letting the wool be pulled over your eyes when you vote on these types of things. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I'm just going to ask folks to avoid ad hominem comments when they address this board. Next.
Next, I have Miss Shelley Overlander.
With Commissioner Bills and the State Board of Elections, I just wanted to commend Commissioner Bills as well for exiting ERIC and any support that the State Board gave her. I've written emails to thank you all for this exit. It was a wise decision. I know it was well thought through. Commissioner Bills has made recommendations for improvements with ERIC, so has Secretary of State Mac Warner in West Virginia, to improve ERIC, and they went unnoticed or no actions were taken upon the recommendations made by some of these original participants. So as far as the costs go, we will no longer be paying the dues that we've been paying to ERIC. And Virginia, under Commissioner Bills, is doing better with list maintenance and improving the accuracy and current the accuracy of our voter lists in Virginia with the actions she's taken with 2 NCOAs this year, and using we have an MOA with North Carolina, memorandum of agreement, which we will have to have with West Virginia, so it will be irrelevant to be a part of ERIC with these memorandums of agreements with our border states. As well, we can get the information ourselves on most of these things that do list maintenance. Social Security Administration, Commissioner Beals or elect just found 19,000 deceased voters still on the voter rolls in Virginia that they cleaned themselves without the help of elect. As well, it will protect the information of Virginia voters, which was being shared with ERIC, who had the ability to share with anyone that they authorized, including information from minors, because the information was collected from the DMV, which included data from minors. And then last, we will be able to make our own decisions as far as elect goes for our voter registration programs and not be dictated by by ERIC any longer. So I wanted to commend Commissioner Bills and the State Board for the exit of ERIC. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next.
Lastly, I have Jeff Fuller of Haymarket, Virginia.
Welcome. Ms. Fuller. Mr. Fuller from Haymarket. Going once.
Mr. Fuller?
So, Mr. Fuller, if you don't want to choose to speak, I would encourage you to submit written comments as an alternative. Any other people, Franchelle?
He is unmuted. He said sorry, he doesn't have any audio.
So please encourage him to submit his written comments, and we'll be glad to review those. All right, any other comments? So thank you all very much. I appreciate the input and the civility with which it has been rendered. So thank you. Next item is a closed session. Delegate Merrick's.
Mr. Chairman, pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A7, I move that the board go into closed session for the purpose of discussing pending and threatened litigation. In accordance with Section 2.2-3712F, Susan Bills, Commissioner of Elections, Laura Hazel of the Office of the Attorney General will attend the closed session because their presence will reasonably aid the board in its consideration of the subject of the meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Call the roll.
Chairman O'Bannon.
Aye.
Vice Chair Dance. Secretary Elvis Long, aye. Mr. Weinstein.
Aye.
Delegate Merrick's.
Aye. All right. I want to thank the public for attending. We'll suspend until we are able to re-adjourn and yes. Thank you all. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
All right, Delegate Merrick's.
Mr. Chairman, I move to reconvene the meeting in open session and take a roll call vote certifying that to the best of each member's knowledge, number one, only such public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under this chapter, and number two, only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard or discussed by the State Board of Elections.
Second.
All right, call the roll.
Chairman O'Bannon.
Aye.
Vice Chair Dance.
Aye.
Secretary Elvis Long, aye. Mr. Weinstein.
Aye.
Delegate Merrick's.
Aye.
All right, I want to thank particularly the staff, the facilitators, and our commissioner and attorney, and all the members of the board. So we got through a big agenda, and I think we did the right things. I do want to just quick query you guys. Do you have any objection if we add a public comment at the beginning on the agenda items rather than to go one at a time? That's the way Roberts apparently does it, and it might just make the meetings flow a little bit easier. I don't think it'll keep people from, I don't think it'll inhibit discussion. All right, we may just, I don't think so. I think we can just change the agenda without a formal vote, absent objection. Okay, well, thank you all very much. Safe travels.